The shattered peace. The twin suns of Mars Prime had barely risen over the crimson horizon when the first warning sirens pierced the morning calm. For 107 years, humanity had known peace. The Galactic Empire had long been an imposing presence in the stars, but treaties, trade agreements, and careful diplomacy had kept open conflict at bay. Hospitals, schools, and markets had operated under the fragile shield of peace, and no one imagined that shield could be pierced so violently. Dr. Leora Hahn, a surgeon at the New Alexandria Medical Complex, was performing routine scans when the first tremors hit the building. The floor quaked, monitors flickered, and alarms blared. For a moment, she froze, gripping the edge of the operating table. The next instant, the hospital was bathed in blinding light, followed by a thunderous explosion that shook the foundations of the sprawling facility. Corridors once filled with the soft hum of medical machinery and quiet conversation were now chaos incarnate. Patients screamed, staff shouted orders, and the walls shivered under the continuous bombardment from orbital cannons. Leora's mind raced. Years of medical training kicked in. She moved instinctively, dragging injured patients from collapsing rooms, shielding children with her body, and coordinating with other survivors. By the time the bombing ceased, the scale of devastation was horrifying. Entire wings were leveled, thousands of lives lost in minutes, and critical research that could have saved countless more now lay in rubble. The Empire's intent was clear. The attack was not a tactical strike against military forces, but a deliberate act of terror against human compassion itself. Across human colonies, news feeds went dark only to be replaced with images from the hospital. Molten metal, twisted bodies, and survivors staring blankly at the sky. The broadcast ignited a wave of outrage. Governments convened emergency councils, debating in urgent, heated sessions. The peace that had lasted over a century was now a fragile memory, and humanity's response hung in the balance. President Cale Varon of the United Earth Council stood before a global assembly, his expression grim. For 107 years, we have honored the ideals of peace. We have cultivated diplomacy, built alliances, and strengthened our civilization. But the Galactic Empire has shown that it will respect nothing, neither life, nor law, nor decency. This is not just an attack on a hospital. It is an attack on humanity itself. The chamber erupted in murmurs, then unified applause. Yet even in that moment of consensus, debates raged behind closed doors. Some leaders argued for measured retaliation, suggesting targeted strikes against military installations while preserving civilian lives. Others demanded total war, claiming that restraint now would invite further atrocities. Meanwhile, Leora moved through the streets of New Alexandria, assisting where she could, her mind replaying the screams and the smoke-filled corridors. She encountered Commander Yarrick Solon, a fleet officer overseeing planetary defense. His eyes were red, not from exhaustion, but from disbelief and fury. "They've crossed a line they can never come back from," he said, voice taut. "This isn't just war. They've made it personal." Yarrick's words resonated with Leora. Humanity had survived plague, famine, and countless wars in its early centuries, yet had always maintained a moral compass. But now, as she looked at the devastation and the suffering, she understood that peace alone could no longer protect them. Something inside humanity had shifted. The instinct to survive had merged with the need for justice. The night fell on a city scarred by fire and ruin, but humanity's defiance was already forming. Across colony networks, encrypted messages circulated, coordinating relief and simultaneously strategizing retaliation. Civilian and military efforts merged seamlessly. Scientists shared intelligence, engineers reinforced communications, and ordinary citizens volunteered for relief and defense efforts alike. Amid the chaos, Leora managed to transmit a live broadcast. Standing atop the ruins of the hospital, she addressed the galaxy. "You may think this act will break us. You may think humanity will bow, but you are wrong. We are resilient. We are united, and we will remember. That single broadcast became a spark that ignited the collective conscience of billions. The 107-year era of peace, fragile as it had been, was shattered, not because humanity desired war, but because the Empire had made it unavoidable. Across the stars, fleets began to mobilize, engineers began to prepare, and civilians steeled themselves for the conflict that had been forced upon them. As Leora walked through the smoldering remains of the hospital, she realized that humanity's response would not be impulsive. It would be calculated, precise, and unstoppable. The Empire had attacked compassion. In return, humanity would unleash ingenuity, courage, and fury unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The first day of humanity's war had begun, not with pride, but with resolve. The hospital's rubble would become the foundation of a vengeance that was as human as it was relentless. Awakening the war machine. The ruins of New Alexandria still smoked as the first human fleet emerged from the orbital docks. Across colonies from Mars to Titan, Earth to Europa, humanity was awakening its long-dormant war potential. For decades, much of this capability had been hidden, shelved in the name of peace, cataloged as contingency plans no one expected to use. Now, under the banner of survival, every secret, every strategy, and every weapon would see the light of day. Admiral Yerrick Solon stood on the command bridge of the flagship Resolute, his eyes scanning the holographic map of Empire positions. Every movement had been anticipated, every weakness cataloged. The Empire's arrogance was their undoing. They believed a century of human peace had bred complacency, that Earth and its colonies had grown soft. They had underestimated humanity's adaptability. In the fleet hangars, civilian engineers worked alongside military officers, converting freighters into stealth bombers, cargo ships into missile platforms, and even orbital construction vessels into mobile artillery. AI systems, once relegated to navigation and logistics, were now being reprogrammed to conduct complex battle maneuvers and rapid threat assessment. The blend of human intuition and technological ingenuity became the foundation of the new war machine. On the planet below, young pilot Mara Kesh tightened her flight harness, the image of the burning hospital etched into her mind. Her entire family had been there that day. She would carry that memory into every dogfight, every skirmish, every calculated strike. Around her, hundreds of other recruits, each with personal losses and personal motivations, prepared to face an enemy that had never truly known what it meant to fight a human. Humanity never surrenders. Jarek's voice resonated across the bridge, carried by comms to every ship in the fleet. We fight not because we desire war, but because it has been forced upon us. The Empire will learn, in every system they touch, that peace is a privilege we grant ourselves, and a privilege they dare to destroy. Intelligence reports poured in. The Empire's supply lines were stretched across hundreds of star systems. Bureaucratic command structures slowed response times, and their soldiers had been trained to expect obedience, not ingenuity. Humans had decades to observe, study, and understand these weaknesses, and now they would exploit them. The first coordinated strike was deceptively small, a lightly defended Empire outpost in the Ord Expanse. Mara piloted her repurposed freighter, now armed with electromagnetic pulse torpedoes, through asteroid fields to avoid detection. When her squadron reached the target, they executed the plan flawlessly. The outpost communication arrays were disabled, supply depots detonated, and key officers captured. Humanity's attack was surgical, precise, and deliberate. Back on the bridge of Resolute, Yerrick watched the live feed. The Empire's inability to anticipate such unconventional tactics became painfully clear. The outpost soldiers, trained for conventional engagements, panicked when confronted by unexpected strategies, human creativity, and moral determination that refused to falter. Amid the planning and combat, Leora Han coordinated medical support for refugees and wounded from collateral skirmishes. She understood that humanity's strength was not solely in its firepower, but in its compassion. Field hospitals were deployed aboard transport ships. AI-assisted triage centers prioritized the critically injured, and every recovered life became a testament to human resilience. Even in war, humanity did not abandon its principles. The strikes escalated. Stealth squads infiltrated Empire research facilities, capturing intelligence that revealed the Empire's rigid, centralized command. Sabotage missions disrupted orbital refineries, forcing delays in fleet production. Across the galaxy, human ingenuity reshaped the theater of war. Conventional tactics of attrition and brute force gave way to adaptive, creative, and unpredictable strategies. As the first wave of victories reached Earth's news networks, civilians cheered, volunteers swelled the ranks, and morale surged across the colonies. Humanity was no longer reacting, they were initiating. The Galactic Empire, once confident in its dominance, now began to realize the scale of the threat. Humanity's capacity for unity, innovation, and ruthless precision had been underestimated, and that miscalculation would cost them dearly. By nightfall, the fleets regrouped in orbit around Mars Prime. Each ship bore the scars of battle, yet their crews were emboldened. Mara looked out from the cockpit of her fighter, staring at the stars. "We've only just begun," she whispered. Every life lost in the hospital that day fueled her determination. Humanity was no longer content to survive. They would make the Empire pay. Admiral Yarrick closed the day with a final address over comms to every fleet and colony. "Remember this. The Empire believes it knows what it faces. It does not. They have yet to comprehend our capacity to adapt, to endure, and to strike when least expected. Today, we've awakened a force they will never fully understand. Humanity will not merely retaliate. We will endure, we will conquer, and we will prevail." The galaxy had changed in a single day. The first sparks of war had ignited, but humanity had already transformed that spark into a blazing inferno. The Empire's complacency had met human ingenuity, and the war to come would not just be fought with weapons. It would be fought with the very essence of what it meant to be human. The fires of retaliation. The stars above the Oort expanse glimmered coldly, indifferent to the escalating war below. Yet in the void between worlds, humanity's response to the hospital atrocity blazed brighter than any star. For months, humans had been mobilizing, striking with precision, and exploiting the Empire's arrogance. Now, the fires of retaliation were spreading, engulfing Empire positions across multiple systems. Commander Marrakesh piloted her stealth fighter through a field of drifting asteroids, each one carefully mapped to conceal her squadron from orbital scanners. Her hands moved with practiced precision over the controls, a rhythm honed through countless simulations and live drills. Every maneuver was calculated, every shot deliberate. Behind her, other human pilots mirrored her movements, forming an intricate ballet of destruction. The target, an Empire fleet gathering in the Helios cluster, poised to reinforce their positions in the Orion sector. Conventional doctrine would have the Empire rely on overwhelming firepower, but humans had learned to turn expectation into weakness. Mara's squadron navigated unseen corridors between moons, launching electromagnetic torpedoes that crippled the fleet's shields and scrambled navigation systems. Within minutes, Empire cruisers floated helpless, their crews scrambling to restore order against an enemy they could not predict. On the command bridge of Resolute, Admiral Yarrick Salin monitored the battle with unflinching focus. "Observe the pattern," he instructed his officers. "They expect us to act like they do. We won't. Their rigid hierarchies slow them. We strike where they're blind, hit where they are weak, and adapt faster than they can respond." While Mara and her squadron dismantled the fleet in the Helios cluster, ground teams executed simultaneous raids on Empire supply depots. Field operatives, guided by AI-assisted tactical projections, neutralized defenses, captured critical intelligence, and liberated human prisoners. Each victory, while small in isolation, compounded the psychological impact on the Empire. Their soldiers began to whisper of a human force that did not simply fight. It thought, it adapted, it endured. Meanwhile, Leora Han oversaw emergency triage on one of the retrofitted medical ships. The wounded arrived from orbital skirmishes, their injuries severe but survivable thanks to human ingenuity and advanced medical technology. Leora's team worked tirelessly, a stark contrast to the cold efficiency of the Empire, whose casualties were often discarded without care. Humanity's strength was proving to be more than tactical. It was moral, a clear differentiation from their oppressors. Hours into the battle, Mara's squadron encountered the Empire's flagship, Dread Sovereign. The massive warship, a symbol of Empire power, was nearly invincible under normal conditions. But humans did not approach this as a conventional battle. Mara coordinated with orbital drones, hacking into the ship's sensor arrays and feeding false signals into its targeting systems. Human ingenuity turned the Empire's technology against them. Energy cannons fired blindly into empty space, while boarding teams breached the hull from unconventional entry points. Amid the chaos, Mara felt the familiar surge of adrenaline tempered by purpose. Every move honored the lives lost at New Alexandria. Each calculated strike was not mere revenge. It was a statement. Humanity would no longer be subjugated. Humanity would not be underestimated. On the fleet's command bridge, Admiral Yerrick observed the results with grim satisfaction. Reports confirmed total immobilization of the Dread Sovereign, massive disruption to Empire logistics, and minimal human casualties. The first real taste of coordinated human strategy had shaken the Empire's confidence. However, victory carried a weight. Leora, reviewing the injured and traumatized, reflected on the moral balance of war. "We fight smart," she reminded herself and her staff, "but we must never lose ourselves. Humanity is defined not by the violence we wield, but by the principles we preserve." Her words echoed across comms channels, reminding soldiers and civilians alike that this war was for survival, yes, but also for identity. Across the galaxy, the fires of retaliation became a beacon. Human colonies reinforced one another, sharing resources, intelligence, and manpower. Propaganda and morale broadcasts emphasized courage, resilience, and ingenuity. Stories of pilots outmaneuvering Empire fleets, engineers sabotaging supply chains, and medical teams saving lives in combat zones spread quickly, inspiring even the most remote settlements. Humanity was no longer merely defending itself. It was rising as a force that the galaxy could neither ignore nor suppress. By the end of the battle, the Helios cluster was a testament to human adaptability. Empire fleets were fractured, supply lines disrupted, and morale shattered. Mara, returning to the fleet, removed her helmet and exhaled, her eyes reflecting both relief and resolve. "This is only the beginning," she said softly, though every human in orbit understood the weight of the statement. Admiral Yerrick closed the day with a fleet-wide broadcast. The Empire believed it could bend us to its will. It believed our 107 years of peace were a weakness. It was wrong. Humanity does not falter. Humanity does not submit. And humanity will continue to strike until the galaxy remembers that we endure, we innovate, and we triumph. The fires of retaliation were only the first chapter in humanity's war. They had not yet unleashed their full strength, but the message was clear. The Galactic Empire had awakened a force that would not stop, that would not negotiate, and that would not be forgotten. Humanity had responded to atrocity not with panic, but with brilliance, courage, and unity, the very essence of what it meant to be human. The reckoning. The vastness of space stretched silently, indifferent to the storm about to break. Humanity's fleets, honed over months of relentless strikes and careful preparation, now converged on the heart of the Galactic Empire's command network, the Citadel of Helion, a fortress station orbiting the Empire's core world. For centuries, it had been untouchable, a symbol of the Empire's dominance. Tonight, it would feel the full force of human resolve. Admiral Yerrick Solon stood on the bridge of the Resolute, flanked by his top strategists. Every movement, every firing solution, every boarding plan had been calculated. The Empire's bureaucracy had left weaknesses exposed. The Citadel relied on automated defenses, rigid protocols, and centralized command, perfect conditions for human ingenuity. "This is more than a battle," Yarrick said, voice steady and commanding. "This is a statement. Every system, every fleet, every colony knows now that humanity does not forgive. We end this war on our terms." Below the station, Marrakesh led a squadron of fighters, their stealth coatings reflecting faint starlight. Her mind replayed the images of the hospital, of lives lost and promises made. Every maneuver she executed was precise. Every strike aimed to cripple without unnecessary destruction. Behind her, drones and AI-guided ordnance disabled the Citadel's sensor arrays, jamming communications and throwing its automated weapons into disarray. Simultaneously, boarding teams penetrated the Citadel's outer hull. Humans had developed specialized micro-breaching technology that bypassed shields and doors in ways the Empire's engineers had never anticipated. Mara's squadron provided cover fire as elite operatives infiltrated critical control centers. Human soldiers, unencumbered by rigid protocols, adapted instantly to unforeseen threats, neutralizing Empire officers before they could organize resistance. Inside the station, panic rippled through the Empire ranks. Commanders shouted orders that were ignored by malfunctioning AI. Soldiers froze under unconventional tactics, and confusion spread like wildfire. The very systems meant to enforce the Empire's dominance now amplified its vulnerability. Humanity's precision, creativity, and adaptability turned the Citadel's own strengths against it. Amid the chaos, Liora Han coordinated triage stations aboard the Resolute. Even in this climactic battle, she ensured that injured civilians and soldiers were stabilized and cared for. Her presence reminded everyone that humanity's war was not mere destruction. It was a fight to preserve life, to defend values, and to assert that strength and compassion could coexist. Mara's squadron broke through the final defensive ring, reaching the station's core reactor. Using a combination of AI-hacked protocols and precision ordnance, they destabilized the reactor just enough to force a surrender without annihilating the entire station. The Empire, realizing their flagship stronghold was no longer invulnerable, capitulated. Jarrek's voice echoed across comms. "The Citadel is ours. Humanity has proven that ingenuity, courage, and unity cannot be suppressed." The aftermath was swift and deliberate. Empire fleets, previously scattered across human-controlled regions, now retreated in disarray, their morale shattered. Human forces secured key sectors, liberated imprisoned populations, and dismantled oppressive installations. Every action emphasized restraint where possible and strategic ruthlessness where necessary. The Empire had learned, too late, that humans were a force defined not by sheer numbers, but by adaptability, intelligence, and resolve. As the fleets regrouped, Mara stood on the observation deck of the Resolute, gazing at the Citadel now under human control. The station bore the scars of battle, yet the Empire's surrender marked not an end, but a beginning. Liora approached, placing a comforting hand on Mara's shoulder. "We did what we had to do," she said softly, "but we also proved something. Humanity can fight, and humanity can heal." Admiral Yarrick convened a final broadcast to every human colony and settlement. "Today, we end not only a war, but a legacy of oppression. The Empire believed it could bend us with fear and brutality. It was wrong. Humanity endures. We innovate, we unite, and we protect our own. Let every corner of the galaxy remember this day, the day humanity reclaimed its dignity and ensured that no force, no matter how vast, can break our spirit." Back on Mars Prime, civilians began reconstruction of the hospital that had started all. Liora supervised the effort, ensuring that it would rise stronger and more resilient, a living testament to human perseverance. Children played amid the rebuilt gardens, laughter echoing where once there had been smoke and ruin. Humanity had not only survived, it had reaffirmed its values, its unity, and its place in the galaxy. The war was over, but its lessons endured. Humanity had wielded weapons with precision, creativity, and honor. Every strike had been a statement, every victory a testament to ingenuity, and every life saved a reaffirmation of morality. The Galactic Empire had underestimated humans, and in doing so, had awakened a force that would define the galaxy for generations. As Mara, Leora, and Yarrick looked out over the stars, they understood one undeniable truth. Humans were not merely participants in history. They were shapers of it. They had endured, they had fought, and they had triumphed. And the galaxy would never forget that when humanity rises, it rises as one, resilient, ingenious, and unstoppable.